Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 127th episode of Book of Hours, our first run through the House of Light expansion on YouTube, playing as the archaeologist. Now, I was originally going to say that I'm utterly clueless about my plans for what I believe is spring, but I also see that I've left myself a whole bunch of notes here. So on my to-do list, it says order 3 beef, get potatoes, level Auroral Contemplations, level transformations, something to minor to 11 and second minor to 11. So I'm glad that I left those notes for myself. The only thing I'm not clear on is, looks like, I'm not quite sure what the status of all kinds of reading is. Then again, I don't know if we're working with lessons right now. Well, we must actually, if if I want to level Auroral Contemplations. Okay, so I think I'm gonna let the timer run on its own for a bit, just so that I can kind of find my bearings here. Okay, we've ordered beef and Strathcoin whiskey. Is there someone en route to Hush House? Oh, and we have a new event. So, the affair of the Grunwald Provision. After the dissolution of... Oh, that can't be true. Right. Sorry, no, it's not a new one. So, the affair of the Grunwald Provision. After the dissolution of Grunwald's permanent circus, its assets were disposed of by the Bureau. That was during one of the Bureau's occasional funding crises, and the Grunwald Provision sanctioned the sale of the circus's assets for cash, bypassing some of the usual checks for oniric hazard. In hindsight, this has started to look like a mistake. Visitors with an interest in heart or winter mysteries will want to talk about this, and of course, Eason is interested in heart. So I do want to work with him, but obviously we've got other priorities right now in terms of getting the hired help to the level that I need. Just double checking. Yes, so I need a third beef. And I'm curious why I only ordered one Strathcoin whiskey. I don't think it would hurt to have a second. I'm already, spending a bunch of money, so I might as well. Alright, we'll work alongside each other. Now, I should have notes in terms of how I plan on leveling up this character. So we've got the memory, we've got the assistance here. For the minor... So there was the hourglass. We don't seem to have used the tool yet. And then fish and wine. Not so sure about that, but I guess I got it here. Alright, so I'm going to use different hourglasses because I think this is a fun little observation. The serpent-styled glass carved snakes writhe down the frame. A prominent inscription reads, "To the librarian, Gervinus in earnest of our wager." So this will take a while, but keep that name in mind because we're going to take a look at another serpent-style glass. I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. I also wonder if it would make sense for me to order another pheasant. We have 2, so no need there. Also, so I've got beef. I guess I haven't really been thinking about the rest of the dishes, though. So, oh, that's right, because I want to get the potatoes. And then for Olympi, what was the plan there? I guess I can settle for almonds. Maybe that was the plan. Or no, because we already have a side dish. So it was either almonds or possibly poached mackerel. All right. break the 10 shilling note. Oh, 56, right. Complete the order. The postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. I do feel a little funny waiting around here, but I believe I should already be reading... Uh-oh. Oh no, sorry, I already have the inescapable confinement. Except for the cooking, I feel okay with where we are. And again, if we have to delay the salon, that's fine. We can work through it. All right, the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. So while I'm here, oops, let's get those potatoes. And hopefully any potatoes that are in an inconvenient spot. Do such potatoes exist? I feel like I was stashing them at one point, but... Oh, there we go. Identify as potatoes. These are potatoes. Spectacular. Okay. So again, we return to this tricky business of I want to keep the health. So I need to keep the health free so that I can interact with the second miner that we hire. And I'm sort of low on the core and the Arab, so there's really no reason for me to be working at this kitchen range right now. This is what's going to make it awkward for the salon. However, I think we should get through... We should be able to get through this little block in a moment. I'm going to wait on the consider verb. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. And this tool has boosted their aspects appropriately. So, we're now up to 9, so this is the time where, I think in some cases with Strathcoyne's whiskey, we'd, yeah, we get 2, so I mean in this case maybe we don't want to give up the fish. So, I'll serve the whiskey instead. Pour out. I'll pour the second as well. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. Poured out. Alright, so that's going to be for the second miner. Yeah, then we'll wait. Don't quite know where I'm going to keep these potatoes. There we go. So once the books have been read, we can start thinking about sort of phase 2 on today's plans. All right, so we have the Book of Dissolution. Alexander Probst recovered a copy of this work from a mountain temple in Persia. Other copies surface now and then, usually seared on rock. The book consists of mostly prayers to the unburnt god, the forge of days which consumes and transforms. It suggests the forge's power rises partly from its nature and partly from its tools. The book describes an earlier house of the sun whose doors and ways were different. It praises the Forge of Days for opening the ways into the house and for transforming that which was to that which is, despite the screams of stone. So 2 transformations and liberations to work with. And then this grants us foresight in terms of memories. I'm trying to remember if... yeah, we've got plenty of space. And then here we have the Rose of Woznai, the heretical teachings of a disgraced offshoot of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories. This was recorded by Woznai and dedicated to Saint Respicius. The offshoot favored by Woznai, the true sisterhood, followed Saint Respicius in pursuing ascension in the name of the door in the eye, the merciless hour of light. Saint Respicius failed, perhaps, because the larger sisterhood tracked him down and ritually strangled him, but Woznai outlined steps for those who hope to succeed. Seek in dreams, seek the mantis. The third mark can be achieved only when one has passed the stag door. One must pass the wood. One must rise to the white door. The stag door awaits the light bearer in the sight of Gerby. And that gets us a revelation. I think revelation was becoming a bit... oh no, there we are. It was becoming a bit of a crowded shelf, but then we got some more space. So I'm just going to take a minute here to... uh-oh. Sorry, I thought I had a problem with my tablet. Okay, so the beef's taken care of. Potatoes are taken care of. I'm not 100% sure if it's Auroral Contemplations or Transformations and Liberations I want to bring up first, but at this point, because I have so many lantern things already, let's focus on... let's focus on Auroral Contemplations, and then we'll move ahead. So, 2, 3... So I'm going to hang on to the site here just because I can get these from... I can get these other ones from books. Or similar. And here I'd say Faust is really the only thing I want to be giving up in this case, seeing as Transformations and Liberations, you know, I can use the others. I could also use Metal as well, but Faust is a good one in this case. Okay, so at the very least I want the Bittersweet Certainty and the Contradiction, although in truth I think maybe I should just read all of the relevant books. So, if that's true, I'm going to keep aside Transformations, Liberations. Let's keep aside 1 Trist and 1 Metal to level those up. I'm also going to use a Metal at Ava's desk. And again, the aim here is just to replace what I'd already used for Auroral Contemplations. So, now Foresight kind of has dual use in this situation, so, and I can't remember... I actually can't remember where we had finished in terms of the... There's kind of an argument for all of these. I'm gonna maybe start at Vinzant's Minglings again, just because I honestly can't keep track of where we were before. But I reserve the right to change that up if I remember. All right, so that's 2 of the 6 that I need. This should do the trick. Three of 6. I genuinely don't remember. cautiously, I'm going to go 4 of 6 here. I think I'm just going to start a shape and smoke again. And then bittersweet certainty should give me the last. Okay, from there I should also be thinking about I feel it's a little weird that I really feel like there should be one more edge or one more lantern for me to work with, but I'm totally drawing a blank. So the foresight will go to transform. Well, I could use the old wound too. So anyways, transformations and liberations. What are we looking at here? Oh, that's a piece of cake. Okay, so moth and forge. I'm gonna bite the bullet on this one and use the Faust. So foresight's already spoken for, but impulses are not. I'm gonna do the white jade tablet and then reset on impulse. Yeah, forge and moth. I guess a pattern wouldn't be a bad idea here. I'm trying to remember. Let's do Raptures of Forculus and then move on. Okay. So I can't see much use for satisfaction, but we'll see. At this point, I'm happy to see where the rest of this takes us. All right, we've got an apple meringue to work with. So I did have a guest list in mind. So this was going to be Douglas, Strathcoyne, Daymare, Olympi. So I think what I'm going to take care of here is, by the way, I keep hitting the microphone stand for this. I do apologize. I know that's a little more annoying for listeners than for me. Let's do the potatoes first because there isn't really any ambiguity in terms of what I need for that position. I believe we need a knife and we need dripping. Make game chips, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and knock. So yeah, it's just Olympi who needs forge that hasn't been accounted for. So this is definitely a main, this is definitely a pudding, and this is definitely a pudding. So we need a side, which I believe is covered by the chips that I'm about to make. Oops. And so if that's true, I need to make sure that I've got a first course, which in this case, the mackerel would make the most sense. I also need drinks, but we'll worry about drinks later. And we'll get to work right away on the on opening up the rustling stair. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't thinking about... Oh, you know what? If it's 30 seconds, we will talk with the miner first. I could encourage my assistant, work with them for a little while, exalt them. Or I could just listen to whatever they might have to say. So I'm taking the 30 seconds here just because I'm going to need some time to hire the next one. And we can potentially get a memory out of this. Although if it winds up being a foresight or something, I'll feel a little foolish. Alright, the skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So it'd be nice if I had more to toss into the mix here, but right now we'll just wait. Better now. Alright, so normally I would be turning this into money. But first thing... hang on. I actually need to put them in... There we go. I've learned something, or perhaps just remembered it. Now that's lucky for me, because I didn't pick regret, but that will be helpful for leveling up transformations and liberations. In fact, that might be my first level up that I can get out of it, so good news there. So I believe it was the Room of Rusts as well as the... No, not the Slithering Fountain. It was the Rustling Stair. So we'll start with the Rustling Stair. I'm not expecting too much out of it, but it's just convenient to have, so... Serpent scales whisper on stone. Serpent eyes glitter in the pale window light. And then another assistance. And at some point we will get Eason involved, but... Okay, now I want to be a little careful about how I handle this second... the second assistant, for the simple reason that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this done by the end of the day. So health makes sense, and escapable confinement makes sense. Basically, I'm going to use the consumables last. That's also one of the reasons why I switched to Strathcoin whiskey, because it lowers the number of interactions that I need to do to make everything work. Oh, I forgot one more important thing, which was loss. We're actually doing a pretty good job of clearing out all the sand, but if I cast an object into the sea, it will be lost, perhaps irretrievably. Use this to dispose of junk or of danger. Alright, Vinzant's Minglings. The metallurgist and skysmith Everett Vinzant speaks of the sacred alloys. The alloys eternal, the alloys sufficient, the alloys intendant. Everett describes the voices and powers of mortals and immortals based on their composition by analogy to the sounds and strengths of bells based on metals of their casting. Vinzant warns that mingling of metals of too great a nobility can produce the alloys incestuous. He suggests very cautiously that the means used by the sovereigns of the leashed flame to produce their heirs may have analogous issues, for though the crime of the sky might be circumvented, yet the law remaineth the law, in spirit as in letter. So I may have to make a choice in terms of how I want to use that foresight. The Key of Night, the deliberations leading to a manifesto of the Worms of Escale, as recorded around 1900 in the Bar Vienna in the cellar of the Hotel Ciervo in Noon. The Worms, all of whom use grandiose nom de guerre like Citizen Knife and the Midnight Pilgrim, agree that all previous iterations of their movement have been feckless and treacherous, and agree that the return of the pre-human hours, the gods from stone, is the true way to end the tyranny of eternity. The Worms identify the Wheel, the Tide, the Flint, Sulochana, the Spider Door, the Excellency Nathobasis, and the Wickle Inextinguishable as the 7 necessary pentiments that must be returned to every history through the propaganda of the deed. This is an eccentric list and clearly a compromise. The process of thrashing it out clearly exhausts all the participants who don't specify the necessary deed beyond a vague reference to the loopholes. So I should be dividing these between Auroral Contemplations and Transformations and Liberations. I'm going to say this is Transformations and Liberations for now, but I may need to change that. A Shape in Smoke, Ambrose Westcott's exposition on tobacco blending and the oracles of the pipe. The text is spotted with sparkles throughout. Westcott observes gnomically that a pipe might be said to manifest the red flower of the watchman's tree, for when lies are burnt, wisdom arises, and vice versa. Musgrave Sketches. Musgrave, 4th Baron Brankrug, was widely mocked as the Bleating Baron in The Lamb de Wolf, but these sketches reveal a complex, somber inner life. Art begins in colors, grows dappled, finally is either mostly darkness or mostly light. Musgrave discusses the temptation of the perfectly minimal palest painting. He has so far managed to resist this temptation, but does guiltily describe success in using sights and sensations, with winter aspect, to create the first a chilly elixir from flowers, which he believes he can refine further into a final pigment. Honey, the Comprehensive Guide. Harvey Haddington, pilot, polymath, confectioner, writes with great enthusiasm about the marvelous work of the bee. Haddington insists that all the primary aspects, nectar, scale, heart, lantern, moth, grail, are possessed by bees and expressed in honey. Clearly, he points out, there are only 6 primary aspects, as a honeycomb has only 6 angles. Ugol ink is prepared with these techniques, but so is skinshuck mead, and only skinshuck requires honey. Just as any beverage or foodstuff can be improved with the addition of honey, so any garden is improved with the presence of bees, even those bloody blumberendi. Okay. So these, I think, were planned for transformations and liberations. The Raptures of Forculus, the first volume of Abbot Geoffrey's hypothetical theological debates in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Forculus might be counted among his names, but that door remains closed, and so Forculus is not. Geoffrey discusses the signs that mark doors, which might permit or forbid access to certain thoughts and dreams, speculating carefully on which of the sanctioned hours might teach or govern each sign. So we definitely have enough to level up transformations and liberations now. And then the White Jade tablet, supposedly copied from a tablet of White Jade, which serves as the Covenant Stone of the Grove of Green Immortals, the token which gives that library shelter beneath the Watchman's Tree. When humankind emerged from the weft of the roots, we were smeared with filth and of crumbled ages. The foolish sought to wash it from themselves, but our skins were yet soft and fell easily from us. The tablet expounds the dangers and pleasures of abandoning appearances in search of essence. Along the way, it reveals the secret of skinshuck mead, which can be brewed from honey by application of the rites of the roots if enough moth aspect is present. Okay, so this one, again, I have a little bit of navigating to do here, but I think there's a pretty clear path in terms of how we level these things up. So I need 6 for Auroral Contemplations, which as you can see I'm 1 short on. And I could say, okay, well, let's just wait 3.5 seconds. But the one that I'll actually need sort of renewal for will be Transformations and Liberations. Even if I get a duplicate for Auroral Contemplations, I know I'm fine. So I'm actually just going to give myself a slight, I don't know, head start on the Transformations and Liberations. Again, 3.5 seconds isn't going to really make too great of a difference. But the big thing here is that I'm able to employ the Regret, the Foresight, and the Impulse. These are all things that might be replaced. And then, of course, I can generate new ones as well. So it just winds up being a little more convenient for me. And I think in this case I'm going to use the FET. The reasons for that should be apparent in just a minute. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. Okay, so just keeping in mind in terms of my overall goals, I'm going to want one more run with Auroral Contemplations. I can do that through the Arab, the Metal, the Fost, or the Wist, so I've got plenty there. And then I can do one more with Transformations and Liberations, and likewise, I have Fet, Metal, Trist, or Shapt. So, and Shapt in particular, I have lots of elements for. So the first thing that I want to do is finally get that, mackerel made. No reason to hold back with the Arab anymore. Poached mackerel, a dish with forge, heart, and moon. Actually, I should also... you know what? We'll find out in a minute. Pretty sure it's good for a first course, though. Next up, I'm going to get 3 more forge. So I'm going to hold back on the... I'll use the Trist, actually. It might be nice to go to Crowcross Sands as well, but yeah, here, ideally I'd like forge that's not going to get replaced, but I think we're out of options for that. It would be forge and moth that don't get replaced, but... yeah, so we can go for a Regret, which I don't think would be a bad choice. I've already got the pattern. Yep, I guess we go back to the usual suspects. Okay, so that'll be 3 that we throw at transformations and liberations when all is said and done. So I'll keep aside a Shapt and a Faust for those purposes. Another thing that I'm going to do here is take, let's say, Ambrose's desk, and I'm going to start reading towards a fundamental aesthetic again, and that's just going to be so that I can replace the inescapable confinement that I'm going to give to the visitor. And at this point, I'm going to see if we can get a bit more fish. Among other things. We might as well use the elements of the soul that I have. We were waiting to hire the miner again. Oh no, we already hired, so... I'm going to resist going to the gull colony for today. Which actually means I've got a bit of a surplus in terms of elements of the soul. Let's add drop water. This is because I know that I'm going to need something for something to drink. All right, there's the game chips, which are a side dish. And the mackerel's already on its way. So let's actually work out the drinks at this point. So we've got coffee or cater and hero. We definitely need the cater and hero for... Okay, this is good actually. So we'll give Don Lion coffee for Douglas. The scale, I suppose at this point, because we didn't use the domain Reveline, I'll put that on the shelf for now. The knock would come from the second flush of Sam, which I'm trying to remember if we ever actually brewed. The thing is, I've got a few teapots all over the place. I know there's a whole bunch of cups up here, but they look so nicely arranged. It would be a shame to disturb them. So I think I will probably take one of my elements of the soul and brew the tea off of that. So Wakefield can get by with a glass of water. This is why I drew up the pitcher. And then Olympi needs forge, but we can get that through the Honey Scar Jasmine. Okay, so I think, given... I also just saw... Move the vegetables. So yes, I think probably the most sensible thing for me to do right now would be to brew some tea. I think at this point probably I can use the Arab for that. I feel a little weird just because it's one I could use with Auroral Contemplations or something else, but it's also the one that I can't really make any money with. So whatever my squeamishness, let's just... Nope, we're not serving. Alright, bring water to the boil, permit the potential here to express itself. So we should be pretty good in terms of getting the last few steps taken care of. When something is given to the sea, it rarely returns, although of course I did. Yeah, the only thing I'm a little worried about is it is quite late in terms of working with Eason. will work alongside each other. So let's send in the inescapable confinement. We should be good in terms of the time for the rest of the day. So we'll have the hourglass and then we'll give him the whiskey. Again, whiskey's last because it's the only consumable out of this plan. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improve the skill to level 7. Alright. We'll now serve this. Still not clear what I'm doing with the rest of the elements of the soul, but I can... actually, opening containers would be a perfect use for that. Poured out. Now I think it's a half pot that we have, so I can actually afford to pour that out and store that in the my chambers here. Although again, we're getting something of a brewed tea collection here. I don't know if I want to encourage this. And I realize we're over time. I'm just, if I can, I'd like to at least get Feckery's work taken care of. The Hidden Stair. After Brulot's retirement in 1861, the Curia found itself short of promising candidates until the arrival of Willem Harries, a former Dutch Lutheran priest and sometime correspondent of Stanislav Schaller. He had been a missionary in the Dutch East Indies until his faith was lost or transmuted into a devotion to St. Agnes of the Gate, and he was drawn to Hush House. He won his position by presenting the Curia with a key long lost. That was the key to this very stair, but only the naive would assume the key was a tangible object. Alright, so the next up we've got the Riddling Stair. Half-seen faces mouth half-heard riddles. This is none of Van Loren's work. These defenses are much older than the Curia, but the Curia found a way to answer these riddles, and so will we. So again, nothing here directly. However, we have Brulot's retirement in 1861, and they were without candidates until Willem Harries. So if we go back to the stair, right, we've got Brulot here. The 6th, well, we have Willem Harries' bust somewhere in here. I think he's in the higher levels. There we go. So we have another entry that we can put in place. A niche with a plaque who brought a key long lost. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. So, and as far as topics are concerned, serpent-style glass, carved snakes writhe up the frame. A prominent inscription reads, "To the librarian Wilhelm in earnest of our wager." And here's the poached mackerel. So, and it is a first course. So we should have everything that we need for the salon. Well, sorry, we have all the food that we need for the salon, except for the fact that apparently I can't put it on the table. I'm sure I don't need to move anything, but let's check that now, and then I can worry about placing the drinks. That is slightly nutty. All right, let's give you a temporary home. Huh. Okay. Just cram this all on the side of the table for now. Well, that's as far as we can go with that. Okay, that'll work. So I'm curious now if I can... yeah, so the game chips stay put. They're really making that difficult. Fair enough. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. I may want to use one of these elements of the soul to earn some money. On the white, Solomon Husher writes, perhaps allegorically of winter and its long, slow, doomed romance with the sun. The epigraph is sunset at noon. On closer investigation, the work seems to be a theory of aesthetics, or perhaps a set of warnings about the dangers of painting. Husher writes distractedly about his suspicion of colors and his yearning for death. He hints at a great work he has envisaged or begun, where the palest of paintings will enthrall the world. He returns again and again to certain compelling phrases, which he claims are the secret words of winter. Traveling at Night, Volume 1, The Annotated Dream Journals of Christopher Olopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist, literate, entertaining, bewildering. The wood lies outside the walls of the Mansus. As any student of the histories knows, the Mansus has no walls. Olopoli describes how he came to make repeated visits to a dream wood via what he calls silver dreams. Trying to think your way to the wood, he explains, is like thinking your way to being in love, but I did find a secret that helped. De Oris, Book 2. In Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This volume deals mostly with the hour called Lionsmith, the hour called the Tribune of Scars, and with their enmity. The Lionsmith makes monsters to defeat the Tribune, but the scars of the Tribune are each a weapon. And Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, or The House of Glass, Julian Cosley considered this his masterwork. Techniques for perception and analysis which permit invidious and apocalyptic conclusions. Probably the most assiduously suppressed book in history, the entire run was destroyed. Even the presses were melted and dispersed, but the manuscript edition has survived. The perfect hegemony of the hours is perhaps eternal, but Cosley proposes and describes confinement inescapable, aesthetic and optical techniques which might contain even an hour, profoundly disrupting the order of the Mansus. He presents this as his own work, but there are hints here and there that he received inspiration or even assistance from the knower hour named Snow. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave that there. Obviously this was, oh, hang on. I think I'm one short on, no, I'm just not paying attention. So this was a little longer than I was expecting, and we still have some things to do, but we should be able to get the miner to the point where we can open up the Room of Rusts, and then we definitely have what we need to be able to level up transformations and liberations, and then finally we should get a pitcher of water up before too much longer for what I believe should be the last drink of the salon. So, but yeah, the main reason why I wanted to go a bit later was to draw the comparison between Gervinus van Loren and Willem Harries, which are both referenced on the different hourglasses. And then we also had a couple of different books with the palest painting come up, so I figured that was a nice little way of closing that loop as well. Anyways, all of this will be continued on Wednesday's episode. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.